evening. I'd like to thank all of you for coming tonight on behalf of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC, for our public scoping meeting for the Constitution Pipeline Project. I'm Kevin Bowman, and I'm the Deputy Project Manager for this project. Charlie Brown, the project manager, is recovering from surgery and could not be here tonight. Also with me tonight from FERC is Kara Harris, an environmental scientist. Outside in the hallway, we have Tamara Young-Allen with our Office of External Affairs, also Pamela Romano with our Division of Advanced Certificates. Also from Department of Transportation's Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration is Alex Dan Henrich, to my left here. And also we have on my right Doug Mooneyhan from Department of Electrics, who is our third-party contractor for this project, with logistics and preparation of documents. Before we get started, please make sure you turn off or silence your cell phones. So tonight we're here to provide you with some information on the federal process related to this project and to hear your comments and concerns. So fundamentally, this meeting is to provide you with an opportunity to give us your comments and tell us what additional environmental issues you'd like us to study in our analysis of the project. We've already received numerous comments concerning the project, including some suggestions. Thanks. Some suggestions for additional alternatives. And we've already requested some additional information from the applicant on those alternatives. We included these additional landowners on our mailing list, and we sent that out to landowners on our notice of intent that you may have received in the mail, and requested comments on the project and announced tonight's meeting. Your input on those alternatives is one of the things that we're hoping to hear tonight. So the FERC staff's environmental analysis will resolve the production of an environmental impact statement, or EIS. The FERC is the lead federal agency that's responsible for the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, review of the Constitution Pipeline Project. It's also the lead agency for the preparation of the EIS. So the National Environmental Policy Act requires FERC to analyze the environmental impacts, consider alternatives, provide appropriate mitigation measures on proposed projects where necessary. So far, the Environmental Protection Agency, Department of Transportation, and New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets are currently cooperating agencies for this project. Additional federal, state, and local agencies with special expertise are welcome to cooperate as well throughout the process. I'd like to clarify a little bit more about the purpose of tonight's meeting, and that the proposed project is not conceived and is not being promoted by the FERC or any of the cooperating agencies. FERC solely reviews the application for the authority to build and operate interstate natural gas pipelines, and Constitution Pipeline is currently in the process of preparing an application to submit to the FERC. Once that application is submitted, our obligation is to review that application and prepare an environmental analysis of those impacts for this project. I'd also like to point out that FERC does not regulate local natural gas distribution pipelines or natural gas production facilities. The New York State Department of Environmental Conservation is responsible for the regulation and oversight of local natural gas production facilities, and the New York State Public Service Commission is responsible for the regulation and oversight of natural gas pipeline distribution in New York. As you know, in Pennsylvania, these facilities are overseen by the Pennsylvania DEP, or Department of Environmental Protection. Although we recognize that you may have concerns over production and local distribution in Pennsylvania and New York, FERC has no regulatory authority over these activities. Comments regarding the production, siting, and permitting are best directed to the agencies I just mentioned. Now, tonight's meeting is not a public hearing. We're not here to debate the proposal, and we're certainly not going to be making any determinations on its fate tonight. We're just here to listen to your comments and concerns so that we can consider them in our analysis. Now, pipeline proposals sometimes encounter objections. Some are general in nature, and some are based on potential environmental and safety impacts. Both categories are nonetheless important for FERC, but they're addressed in different ways. The general objections to the project are considered by the Commission's Public Convenience and Necessity Review, whereas the environmental and safety impacts are addressed by the FERC environmental staff in the environmental impact statement. And our notice of intent was issued on September 7th. We requested your comments and assigned a deadline of October 9th. However, the end of that scoping period is not the end of the public involvement. We will continue to take your comments throughout the review of the project. But for us to adequately address your comments, analyze them, and research the issues, we ask that you try and get those to us as soon as possible.
Well, I'm sure everybody can hear you in here, but I sure can't.
Maybe some of you guys can move down a little closer. That might help also.
It helps moving the
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Just said that a couple minutes ago. I'll go back. For us to adequately address your comments and address them and research those issues, we ask that you try and get those to us as soon as possible. The speakers list was located outside at the back table, and we will use that list to identify those who wish to speak tonight. In addition to those verbal comments that were provided tonight, we also accept your written comments. If you have comments but don't wish to speak tonight, you may provide written comments on the comment forms at that table outside and drop those off with us tonight or mail them in at a later date. If you're mailing something in, please make sure it includes the project docket number, which is PF12-9, no spaces. Now, the Constitution Pipeline Project is currently in our pre-filing process. That means as an application has not yet been filed with FERC. Consider the pre-filing process to be, amongst other things, an extension of our scoping process. The scoping process is a learning process where we educate ourselves about the project and the potential issues. During the scoping process, we're gathering information. 4 general sources that we're using right now are information provided by the applicant, input from other federal, state, and local agencies, and our own field work and research of different issues, and of course, information from the public. Now, once we gather the information developed during the scoping process, and the application is formally filed by the applicant, we will analyze it, and we will prepare a draft environmental impact statement that will be distributed for comments. There are 2 general ways that you can get a copy of the draft EIS. First of all, you can receive the notice of intent that we sent out. You're already on the mailing list, and you'll receive a copy of the draft. If you didn't get the notice of intent, make sure you're signed up on the mailing list, which was outside in the hallway. Make sure you give us your name and address, and you'll receive a copy of the draft. If you don't, you won't be able to get the copy, so make sure you do that if you want it. Also, the mail version of the EIS will be on a CD, so if you prefer to have a hard copy, let us know. Indicate that choice on the return mailer, or let us know outside in the table and hallway. Now, after the draft EIS is issued, there's a 45-day public comment period. During that period, you'll hold another public meeting similar in format to this one. You'll probably come back here to this same facility, if it's available, and ask you to comment on the information in the draft EIS. At the end of the 45-day public comment period, we'll begin organizing all the information gathered to date and prepare the final EIS. Once we've issued the final EIS, it will be forwarded to our commissioners. The EIS is not the decision-making document. Our 5 commissioners at FERC will use that document, as well as other information, to make a determination on whether or not to grant an authorization for the project. And now, before we get into taking your comments, we're going to have Alex Dankanich, who's an engineer with PHMSA. He'll give a brief presentation on his agency's role in the process.
Good evening. I'll use the microphone. Good evening. My name is Alex Dankanich. I'm an engineer with PHMSA, which stands for the Pipeline and Hazardous Material Safety Administration. It's a federal agency, small federal agency, under the U.S. Department of Transportation. PHMSA is the federal agency responsible for the integrity of gas and liquid interstate transmission pipelines in this country. On a proposed pipeline, on a new proposed pipeline such as this one, PHMSA would review the pipe design elements and the construction procedures prior to allowing construction to begin. Once construction begins on the pipeline, such as this proposed one, PHMSA engineers such as myself, in conjunction with our state partners in New York and in Pennsylvania, would inspect the construction and all the construction-related procedures of an interstate, in this case, gas transmission pipeline. After the pipeline goes into service, PHMSA regularly reviews the operation and maintenance of the pipeline and all the related facilities and appurtenances connected to the pipeline. The maintenance of a pipeline, there's issues that involve operator qualification that the operator needs to perform, and the training of his maintenance personnel. The maintenance of all valves, all pressure control equipment related to the pipeline, leakage surveys, petroleum surveys are also reviewed by PHMSA on a regular basis. Again, once a pipeline is in service, PHMSA reviews the operation manuals that cover all aspects of the pipeline maintenance and operation of a line are also regularly reviewed. I'll be available if you have a specific issue or specific question, such as I heard somebody talking about pressure control and things like that. I'll be available after the meeting to answer directly one-on-one or in group questions. Thank you.
Okay, so we now have Cindy Ivey from Constitution give a short presentation on the proposed project.
Good evening, can you hear me? Can you hear me? I don't think this microphone is very loud. You can't hear me?
Hang on, let me give you this microphone. This one seems to work very well. You may need to hold it close.
Good evening, can you hear me now? Great. My name is Cindy Ivey. I'm the manager of public outreach for the Constitution Pipeline Company, which is a joint venture between two natural gas companies, Williams and Cabot Oil and Gas. In addition to being the majority owner of the pipeline, Williams would be responsible for permitting, constructing, and operating the Constitution Pipeline. The proposed 121-mile, 30-inch pipeline is being designed with the capacity to transport 650,000 decatherms of natural gas per day from the production area in northeastern Pennsylvania to well-developed large domestic markets in New England and New York City. The capacity that would be transported in this pipeline is the equivalent to serving the energy needs of approximately 3 million homes per day. The primary route would start adjacent to an existing compressor station here in Susquehanna County and extend approximately 120 miles across parts of Broome, Shenango, Delaware, and Schoharie counties in New York, ending at an existing compressor station in Schoharie County, New York. The company is currently examining a 600-foot wide study corridor and has asked for survey permission from landowners along this primary route. The 600-foot wide survey corridor allows the company flexibility to make informed decisions regarding the potential location of proposed facilities. The company is also studying more than 15 route alternatives and, based on input from stakeholders and agencies, has adopted alternatives A, B, L, and Q into its primary route. 5 open houses for the primary route, 1 in each county, were held in July. Along with the primary route and several variations, the company is studying an 80-plus mile major route alternative, referred to as alternate route M, which would route the pipeline closer to Interstate 88. The alternative was developed in response to numerous comments from stakeholders. The first 45 miles of this alternate would be the same as the primary route and would potentially affect a different set of landowners who are located closer to Interstate 88 in Shenango, Otsego, Delaware, and Schoharie counties in New York. This alternate would be approximately 127 miles and would terminate at the same location in Schoharie County as the primary route. 2 open houses for this alternate route M were held in the area on September 12th and 13th. In addition to the 121 miles of pipeline, The Constitution proposal also includes a new 32,000 horsepower compressor facility that would be located in Schoharie County, New York, 2 receipt metering stations in Susquehanna, Pennsylvania, and 2 delivery metering stations in Schoharie County, New York. Williams proposes to meet or exceed all federal regulations established by the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration for construction and operation of this project. We are developing an integrity maintenance plan that focuses on prevention first and foremost, followed by detection and mitigation. Since 2002, we have invested more than $1 billion in our existing pipelines on maintenance and integrity-related enhancements. The pipeline, compressor station, and meter stations are being designed with safety and security measures. A local full-time staff of highly trained individuals would operate, monitor, and maintain the pipeline and its facilities. In addition, the pipeline would be remotely monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week from Williams Central Gas Control in Houston. Constitution entered the pre-filing process in April of 2012 and filed first drafts of Resource Report 1, which covers the scope of the project, and Resource Report 10, which gives an overview of the company's alternatives analysis in May 2012. We plan to file additional drafts of all required resource reports 1 through 12 in November, followed by the filing of our formal 7C application in early 2013. Should the project receive approval, the company is targeting a March 31st, 2015 in-service date.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. This meeting is being recorded by a transcription service, so all of your comments will be accurately transcribed and placed into the public record. For the benefit of all in attendance and for the accuracy of the transcript, when your name is called, please come up and step to the podium and clearly state your name and affiliation, if any. You might spell your name to the court reporter to ensure accuracy if any misspelling is likely. We have, how many speakers do we have? We have 9 speakers signed up, and I will trade microphones with you guys. The first speaker is Brent Jennings.
Okay. All right, I'm a councilman. I'm Brett Jennings, counselor for Great Bend Borough, also one of the directors for the Halsted Great Bend Joint Sewer Authority. Some of my issues, compression stations. Recently, Williams has had some issues with 2 of their stations. One on Dunbar Road for the laser pipeline, where it was expelling gas and a lightning storm ignited it. Units from Vestal, New York, the other side of Broome County, were called in due to specific equipment. The Springville compression station explosion. From the report sent to DEP on April 7th, 2012, it looks like they had an incident where proper lockout-tagout procedures were not followed. And the DEP asked them to hold operations on the site, yet within, I believe, 24 hours, Williams ignored that and started operations again. There's also an issue that I know of where Secret Service people have questioned litigants against Cabot for setting explosives on that. I don't know if they made unfounded claims just to intimidate a litigant against Cabot. Also, at the 28 August 2012 Planning Commission meeting, Another compression station on the laser pipeline, which Williams has amended its air permit through DEP for 3 stations. At the Planning Commission meeting, they intend to build this building now for 5 units. What is the intent? Do they want it to get it permitted as a minor, knowing they're building it for 5 compression stations? That's another issue to circumvent the permitting process. Boring pipelines. The laser pipeline was bored under the Susquehanna River to the west, and then to the east under Route 11 and I-81 near Orchard Road in Great Township. Both of these directional drilling operations cause a change in water quality in many wells in the valley and on the hillside where they drill. They said it was bentonite, yet there's another issue, there's other stuff in it. Some of these water wells also discharge into the sewer collection system for the Halsted Great Bend Joint Sewer Authority. I don't take too kindly having stuff put into my sewer plant that could affect the biological process. And if enough stuff is put into it, we may have to get a new permit due to a different waste stream. And this brings up another issue. This pipeline will be bored near the water wells for New Milford Municipal Authority that supplies water to New Milford Borough. These water wells and the discharges of effluent to our sewer plant through their collection system and passed on to ours represents close to 1/3 of our discharge of effluent. That could be a serious amount and could affect our treatment operations and cause violations of our permit. Another issue for boring pipelines. The laser pipeline was bored under unleased property. They couldn't control the direction of the boring. Earlier this year, that aggrieved landowner contacted Williams after they purchased the laser pipeline. Said, "What do you want us to move it?" Now they're looking at negotiating with them and offering them less than what other people received that negotiated before it was placed on their property. This is a trespass. Who's going to go to jail for this incompetence and inability to stay within the right-of-way of their leases? Another issue with boring pipeline. Along Trollbridge Creek, just east of Orchard Road in Great Bend Township, north of Great Bend Borough, there was a bunker or containment area built with hay lined with black fabric. My belief is this was used to dump the drilling mud for the laser pipeline feet from Trollbridge Creek to recover the max gel that was in the drilling. Another bunker was found on the Stevens property in Silver Lake Township, where they had multiple blowouts, or as they call it, incidental return to the surface in a high quality stream. Then there's the issue with Cabot. This is another pattern. In November 2009, they signed an agreement, or a consent order agreement. On April 15th, they signed another one. There was 2 letters posted by Cabot over this. But on page 5 of that modification to consent order and agreement that was signed on April 15th, order, number 2 findings on page 5. Cabot agrees that the findings in paragraphs A through S above are true and correct. In any matter or proceeding violating or involving Cabot in the department, Cabot shall not challenge the accuracy or validity of these findings. On page 13, there was a statement where enacting where they would follow, I believe it's Title 18 PCS, Section 4904, which is unsworn falsifications to authorities. That can be up to a 2-year term. This one is for that he's authorized to sign. I'm not sure, it would be up to a DA or whoever at DEP to figure out what he would be charged with. But it was signed by Dan O'Dingy, CEO of Cabot, and the attorney for Cabot. And that could be a mandatory $1,000 fine, and depending if he wasn't authorized to sign for Cabot, it's 1 year in jail. But the other part, on page 5, I don't know if that's worth 2 years in jail. Letter dated 28 September 2010. This letter was publicly put in the Transcript Independent, which are local papers in this county, and then the daily papers in Binghamton and Scranton. In that letter, Cabot does not believe it caused these conditions and intends to fight these allegations through its scientific findings. This statement violates the part on page 5 of the modified consent order agreement from April. And then on the letter directly to the Secretary of Department of Environmental Protection, under extraordinary duress and pursuant to your demand, Cabot was handed and compelled to sign what you declare to be a new non-negotiable consent order agreement. That includes emissions, which you knew Cabot did not agree, and ordered plugging of wells that you knew were not necessary. I see this as a flagrant violation of the authority of the Department of Environmental Protection by the corporation and by the CEO personally. I see it as a pattern of action of these companies. And if this is done, are they going to modify it after? Is it at this time? Is it whatever goes down to a piece of paper, I do environmental assessments. Haslock would qualify. At this time, it's a very good choice of words.
Thank you. David Plank.
If I could ask that the speakers use that microphone when they come up, so we can hear better.
That's the loudspeaker.
Oh, is it?
David Plank. Vera Scroggins.
I know.
If you would, please speak directly into the microphone. Be as loud as possible.
This microphone, can everybody hear me now?
Yes.
I'd like to say that this pipeline, I can see, has to have all kinds of environmental assessments and safety assessments. One of my concerns is also that there is no odorant required for the gas that's flowing through this pipeline for 120 miles under high pressure. And I'd like to know why that's not required. I would like to see that required because just because the pressure could change in the pipeline, and that would indicate a problem, and then they would set off their automatic emergency regulation and depressurization and being able to shut off sections of this pipeline. If there should be a leak, I feel we should have an odorant just in case people who live near these pipelines, if they should happen to smell something, that they can also help themselves to evacuate as quickly as possible. Because this pipeline, like all the pipelines in our county and all the agricultural counties of our state and New York, is a Class 1 pipeline. That means there is the least amount of regulation compared to the other classifications. And that also means that the zone and the area of impact, if there should be a leak, like the leaks that have happened in other parts of our country, that people within like a 200-foot area or more, or 2-mile area even, are susceptible to injury and death. So in case I happen to live near a pipeline, which is not my choice, but if I happen to be, I'd like to know what the minimum distance from any occupied building is, which I haven't read yet. I'd like to know what that minimum is. Those homes that are nearby, and you can have no more than 10 homes within a mile for Class 1, that hopefully we might smell something and have some time to leave before the automatic adjustments are made. The automatic monitoring, which is going on right all the way from Houston. So I would request an odorant. And I would also like to say that after all your assessments, I also heard that there's only one compressor station being really planned for this line, which is at the end of this line. And I find that hard to accept and believe that 120 miles of pipeline, high-pressure pipeline, requires only one compressor station, and it has 2 compressors in the Schoharie County. And from what I understand, they're not counting the compressor station being built right now in Brooklyn, Pennsylvania, on Turnpike Road, that has, I believe, 2 or 3 compressors permitted for it. They're not counting that one. They're saying that it's not directly connected into that compressor station, that there is a metering and regulation station in between that compressor station, the Central Williams compressor station. There'll be a lateral pipeline of some kind from the compressor station to the metering and regulation station. And then that pipeline goes into the Constitution line. So it's not directly connected. So somehow it's not being directly considered as part of the Constitution line. I'd like to ask for reevaluation of that you can consider that compressor station in Brooklyn be considered part of this Constitution line. And that if it's 120 miles, that there'll probably be more compressor stations along the line. Can you make Williams sign any kind of an affidavit that they must promise they will not put any more compressor stations along that line? Can that be done? Because if they claim right now that they don't need more, I will find that hard to believe. Because I was an intervener on the laser pipeline, and they promised us off the record several times, the representatives of laser, that there would be no compressor stations along that line. We asked them several times. We didn't ask them to put it in writing, which was a mistake. I asked you to have them put it in writing, sign it. Those who are representing this company to sign it. Because for laser, they said there wouldn't be any. Now we have, along a mere 21 miles in our county, 4 compressor stations permitted. From 0, we go to 4. How did that happen? Why was that necessary when we were told emphatically it wouldn't be necessary? So that's why I don't believe what they have to say completely. How can I believe them after what they've done? Another pipeline company, just like a year and a half or 2 years ago. They couldn't even stand by their word then. Why should I believe them now? So I'm asking that something needs to be done about that. Something seriously needs to be done about it. Because if you have 120 miles of pipeline, and the way it looks right now with laser is every 4 miles is a compressor station of at least 2 compressors. That means 4 into 120. What do we get? 30? So we might have 30 compressor stations of at least 2 compressors along that line. That could be possible. I don't want to see that happen because compressor stations emit tons of toxic materials. It's going into our air, and then we breathe that in. They're allowed by law to have tons of VOCs and BTEXs and benzenes and toluenes and formaldehydes and sodium dioxides, all these lovely sounding names that are going to be emitted into our country air, so that we can breathe this in. So I might as well live in the middle of Linden, New Jersey, Elizabeth, New Jersey, or Manhattan. Why should I live here then? I might as well go back where I came from, which was New Jersey and Nassau County, Long Island, where the air was anything but as clean as what it's been here. And I don't want to do that, or for my family, or anybody else I know. So that is another major concern. Maybe we might have 30 compressor stations where they're telling us right now, 1, which they're not even counting the central compressor station in Brooklyn. So this is a very serious issue. And besides that, I'd like to say also that I don't recommend you even approving this project. Why do we need it? The other study that would be needed is, do we need this? We have a glut of gas in this country. They've so overproduced gas that they've shot themselves in the foot. And now we have a glut. What to do with it? So that's what can we do? Let's build a 120-mile, 30-inch pipeline to handle this glut. Is there a market for it? You have several pipelines going into these market areas. They're full. Do you really need it? I would like to see a survey with that, to make sure you actually have a market for this pipeline, for this amount of gas, like the representative from Williams just testified or said, 3 million homes a day it'll supply. Do we really need to supply them with this pipeline? And do we need to impact 120 miles of rural countryside and change the whole topography and habitat area and the safety of the residents? Just because we're considered class 1? Just because there's less than 10 homes in a 1-mile area? We still have people there. If there's even one person, they count as much as if there was 10,000 people there. We count. We're not expendable. So we need to be protected. And you are a regulatory agency. Do not approve this project. That is my primary desire. Do not approve it for our county or all the counties of New York it's going through. Because not only will it go through New York if it is approved, but it'll be the beginning of further development. What else are they going to do with it? Then it'll be an area where they can build more gas sites, thousands of them, just like we have almost 1,000 in our county in 4 years. They'll build thousands of them. Change the whole area. Gas site 1 mile apart, half a mile apart, pipeline after pipeline like we have here, compressor station after compressor station, so that we can no longer live in those areas. We will have to move. We will have to be gas refugees. I will have to move at some point. I don't want to live in the midst of a refinery. I consider it basically a refinery. Every gas site is like a mini refinery. And they're processing the gas, moving it through, and the danger alone living through near such high pressure pipelines. I don't want to be gassed. I think we did enough gassing in World War II. Do not gas the American population.
That's right.
Do not kill us with the gas that's not necessary, that has to be ripped out of the bowels of the earth. And the earth has to be destroyed, basically, and penetrated and ripped apart so it can be, all this resource can be removed. And then we will be gassed by it in the air, in the water. The water is impacted, the air is impacted. There's got to be better alternatives that are not going to affect our health, our well-being, our safety, for now, this generation, for generations to come. We have enough water impacts in our county alone from the gas drilling. Every week I hear of new areas that are impacted. And I don't want to see this expanded to New York. At least one state can resist and stop this. Stop the madness. This is a whole project of madmen who are interested only in profit, getting the most profit that they can. For the 1% who want this, so they can make, again, billions and billions off of your back, our backs, so that they can make their money and then we are expendable. Don't allow them any further expansion. They don't need billions more. They have enough money. This is not going to help any of us for the most part. The gas industry needs to go. It needs to be stopped. Thank you.
Meryl Solar.
No voice. Hello? Is this close enough? Can everyone hear me? Barely? How's this? Okay. With each new well pad, compressor station, dehydration facility, and pipeline, we leave more indelible and detrimental impressions on our communities. And I think it's time we stop to consider the cumulative effects here. And for each new planned facility, we have to ask, is this one really necessary? Here are 4 facts. 1, several high-pressure interstate pipelines are already in place to transport gas across Pennsylvania to U.S. markets, including New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. And today, 98.5% of U.S. natural gas consumption needs are already being met by North American supplies. Fact 2. The industry is now constructing a vast network of smaller, lower-pressure intrastate pipelines, or gathering lines, throughout Pennsylvania's Marcellus region. And since wells are being drilled everywhere, more gathering lines are not far behind. Fact 3. The industry has worked very hard to promote their activities as the way to reduce our dependence on foreign oil. And when questioned, they deny that the gas may actually be sold to the highest offshore bidder to maximize their profits. Fact 4. The combination of, and the haste in developing our shale gas, and the fact that our current needs are already being met, have created a glut of gas which is demonstrated by drastically reduced prices. It's simple supply and demand. Consuming more will only result as our entire infrastructure is reworked, requiring huge investments of time, money, and the cooperation of industry, government, and our citizens, and this can take decades. Although these facts may seem disjointed and unrelated to the issue at hand, they lead me to a burning question and a request for you. My question is, what exactly is the justification for this additional transmission line and new route? If it's simply to move the gas to market, then why can't we use the existing transmission lines? Do we really need to tear up more land and disrupt more communities with dangerous, maximum pressure pipelines just because we can? Are the existing lines already at or close to maximum capacity? Maybe. But since we are apparently producing more gas today than we consume, we seem to have the time to figure out how our existing lines or routes can be used or expanded and avoid impacting new areas. Or maybe it's to transport the gas closer to port cities and sell and ship out to the highest bidder, and not for our own energy security after all. But if this is the case, then I am certain that the majority of our patriotic residents would not have been so willing to jump on this bandwagon and sacrifice their communities and quality of life in the first place. Now you might be thinking that how the gas is used after transmission is not really your problem, right? And goes far beyond the scope of your role in authorizing a route. But I'd have to say that in order for our government to approve the use of eminent domain, further clear-cutting our forests, and subjecting more rural but residential areas to significant risk from highly explosive but minimally regulated pipelines, there really needs to be a factual and publicly beneficial justification. And that does not include maximizing profits for private industry. Now my request is that those living along the proposed routes, any of whom may be subjected to the powers of eminent domain or impacted in some way, are provided access to the results of a comprehensive justification study for building this new transmission line and route in the first place, and are given the time to review and provide feedback before any final approval is granted. And the report should include the following: an analysis of the anticipated increase in natural gas usage over the next decade that can justify the need to increase transmission capacity from the Marcellus region beyond current capabilities. Evidence demonstrating why existing transmission lines are not sufficient or cannot be updated or expanded to meet these future needs. Details of how and where the produced or transmitted gas is to be stored, if overproduced, to secure the supply for domestic use, along with studies outlining the effects these facilities would have on the community at large and the potential risks involved. I'm thinking LA salt domes and sinkholes here. And if it is determined that existing transmission pipelines cannot be modified to handle an increase in production, but the increased transmission capacity is necessary, then we need a detailed explanation of why entirely new routes are needed rather than running additional lines along existing routes, eliminating the need to impact currently undisturbed communities. Is that all my time? I have so much more I can say. But I think I'm out of time, so I'd just like to say that here in Pennsylvania, the methods for Marcellus development have really been to fire first and aim later. And there are simply too many potentially devastating consequences, many of which have already been realized and have yet to be addressed to allow the continuation of that approach. So I thank you for your time, and I hope for your consideration of my request.
Joseph Asaro.
Here, good. I'm Joe Massaro. I work with Energy in Depth. I work directly with the industry, so making that clear. I'm not here tonight representing them. I'm here representing a resident of Pennsylvania. Over the last few days, I've heard a lot of what people have to say, and I kind of wrote some stuff up, some thoughts. Thought I'd share with everyone. I read recently in Forbes magazine, Cornell president, vice president, quoted saying, "We cannot put this genie back in a bottle. Fracking is already being carried out across the country, and shale basins have been identified on 6 continents, making fracking a truly global issue. The question before us is not whether to frack, but how, where, and with what safeguards in place. With natural gas supplies plentiful for now and prices relatively low, we have time to make sound decisions with our shale gas resources. In creative partnership with government and industry, universities can help make sure we get it right." A lot of what I've heard from other people in terms of what else they would use besides natural gas have been renewable sources of energy. So I'll talk really quick on windmills. Wind is among the most environmentally friendly energy forms around, yet communities all over have resoundingly shot down recent proposals. I'm dating this back to 2005, and there have been recent ones in Oswego, New York more specifically, but in 2005, a proposal to build an offshore wind project on the south shore of Long Island was torpedoed. The project was opposed by nearly 1,000 Long Islanders who likened the windmills, which would have been constructed very far out in the Atlantic Ocean, to visual pollution. And windmills have their own problems in terms of functionality as well, but I won't get into that here. Solar energy. We all believe solar energy is another viable source to meet our energy needs. We all worry about pollutants in the atmosphere, right? During the production of solar panels, nitrogen, trifluoride, NF3 is produced in high volumes and is about 17,000 times more potent a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. I'm not sure if people knew that, but I'm not saying accidents can't happen with shale gas extraction. They can. I just heard someone talk about removing gas from the bowels of the earth. I'm not sure if you've heard of strip mining, but that's how we get the rare minerals for our solar panels, removing them from the bowels of the earth. My point here is that we don't have a clean energy, and I think that natural gas right now is what we should be focusing on instead of constantly protesting it. In the last 10 years, UGI Energy utilities have added 50,000 customers, mostly people who have changed their heating system to natural gas. Let the statistics speak for themselves. The people here tonight opposing natural gas development infrastructure are in the minority. In Pennsylvania, and more specifically Luzerne County, the 50,000 people who have switched to natural gas as a cleaner and economically sound energy source are the silent majority. Some of you here tonight were in Albany and handed Governor Cuomo 3,200 signatures against natural gas development infrastructure. I believe that has grown to 5,000, again, still a minority. Many who oppose these projects here want more renewable energy sources, from what I've heard at other meetings. You seem not to mind traveling out of your area to protest in these meetings. So where were you when this wind farm in Long Island and Oswego, New York was being voted on? Many of you were here making your science and backyard documentaries. You had your chance to show a better energy source for us to solely use. You have failed to do that. It's now time to embrace natural gas. We have spent years here developing this resource, and without pipelines, we cannot move it to utilize it. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca Yoder.
Thank you very much for giving us all the opportunity to speak. Federal regulations do require this public purpose open hearing for the proposed Williams Cabot Constitution Pipeline, a massive 121-mile, 30-inch high-pressure pipeline to gather natural gas from the heart of Susquehanna County and deliver it to domestic and arguably global markets. If this transmission line is to transport natural gas to lucrative global markets, FERC should not approve this for public utility status and eminent domain. Williams is paying for these scoping hearings held in affected communities. That's regulation. Scoping hearings should be held in both New York counties of Delaware and Otsego, as this pipeline may have massive impacts in these communities. I asked FERC to include the Williams Central Compressor Station on Turnpike Road, Brooklyn Township, as part of the Constitution Pipeline Project. As stated by Williams in its PADEP air quality permit, they admit that it's part of this project.
you should include it in the project application. This compressor station would be the first at the beginning of this massive transmission line. The current FERC application, excluding the Williamstown compressor, avoids doing any FERC-required studies on noise, air, cultural, and socioeconomic pipeline impacts. This is classic segmentation, and I might add, I live a mile down the road from this 54-acre site where the compressor station, Williamstown compressor station, is almost completed. I asked for a cumulative impact study of induced development along the Constitution corridor, increased shale extraction due to existing pipeline compressor infrastructure and resulting air and water impacts, increased commercial development attracted a cheap source of natural gas, cumulative aggregate air impacts, drinking water and watershed impacts from projected induced development, cumulative public health impact study for air, water, stress from increased industrialization and commercialization along the Constitution corridor, and a projected impact on property value, ease of obtaining homeowner insurance, and increased need for access to health care due to cumulative public health risks from at least air pollution. I asked for a study on drinking water as pipeline installation in this county and other states has frequently impacted drinking water sources. Springs from simple laying of pipeline have been impacted. Drilled water wells, 200 feet plus, with casings, have been impacted from directional drilling, and residents in our county have lost their drinking water from pipeline installation. I asked for a study of directional drill mud blowouts, inadvertent return to surface, that's what industry calls it, which occur frequently and impact our streams, creeks, watersheds, and the Susquehanna River cumulatively. Require air dispersion studies for all the realistically projected compressors and well pads and fugitive emissions, analyze radon and VOC fugitive emissions from the pipeline and its gathering lines and all associated well pads. Require a realistic greenhouse gas analysis for not only the transmission line, but for all aggregate gathering lines and compressor stations. Require Williams to routinely inspect Class 1 pipelines and have an emergency plan for us, the people living in Class 1 areas in case of emergency. Require transparency about high consequence areas so that residents know if they are living in a high impact area. Make concern for human safety, health, and life a primary operative principle in this project or deny it. Thank you.
Thank you. Frank Feiner.
Well, I'm going to be the comic relief here tonight. What I have here is a 20-pound imaginary propane tank, the type that's commonly used on barbecue grills. I do not bring in a real one because of the danger involved. I'm sure that the authorities have recognized that and stopped it at the door. Essentially, it's not much more than a section of pipe filled with gas, closed at both ends, with a pressure of under 200 pounds per square inch. Why can this be looked upon as a threat when it's clearly visible, tested, and in the hands of a competent human being? A being has a soul, a conscience, is aware of right and wrong. Yet a corporation that is no more than an imaginary person, when there's no soul or conscience, and clearly does not distinguish right from wrong, is permitted to wind up such large tanks under much larger pressure, 1,000 pounds or more, end to end, and bury them through populated areas. If there is an accident with these pipes, we have all seen the results. It will burn more than the burgers on your grill. I am not the brightest person on earth. In fact, I consider myself as being quite simple, and at times even somewhat stupid. But I have the smarts to spot something stupider than myself. It takes one to know one, they say. What Williams is proposing is stupid and dangerous. And if something goes wrong, human people will die, not imaginary ones. Williams is an imaginary entity, but with superpowers. Powers that dwarf those of real people, and these powers have one objective, and that is to do whatever it takes to make money, even if it means exporting the product overseas. Exporting is where the profit is. This pipeline has nothing to do with meeting our energy needs or national security. It's about money, period. Now, for me to go on, I need to clear up two definitions. The first one is the word day, D-A-Y. It can mean part of the day that the sun shines, or the entire 24 hours. The word is used both ways, and both are acceptable. The other word is fracking. It can mean just the process of breaking up the shale under hydraulic pressure, or that plus everything that is needed to support it, including clearing the pads, hauling the water, mining for silica, drilling the wells, and building pipelines. Williams is in the fracking business, along with other multinational and omni-power corporations that show no allegiance to any nation, or for that matter, humans in general. They're trying to keep a stranglehold on energy distribution of the planet. The energy corporations are interested in hanging on to antiquated, if not ancient, types of ancient energy production, all of which revolve around burning something. We can do better. I believe our Creator has given us all the energy we need: the sun, the wind, tides, geothermal, and much more that has not been discovered yet. Clean water and clean air are also gifts that were given freely to us. Fracking is destroying these. If natural gas is a gift, why was it buried a mile down and under our water table? Humans know the difference between love and rape. Apparently corporations do not. What Williams wants to do is based on the lust of power, not the welfare of the people. It is wrong, it should not be permitted. And to the regulators, forget you were taught what you were taught. Think for yourselves. The Creator made your mind and gave you the gift of free will. Trust it and use it. I just did.
Thank you. Honorable Clifford.
A little
Stay as
closer.
close to the microphone as you can.
I'd like to comment on 2 points. One is the necessity for this pipeline. The other is the quality of the regulations in place, should it be approved. If you first look at the necessity for this pipeline, I think you must first take into account the environmental, health, and global climate effects of continuing fossil fuel extraction. Of course, we need our own independent energy source for all the obvious reasons: jobs, the economy, the military overseas, protecting our interests. But we also need to choose the best source for the long term. It is commonly agreed that renewables are that best choice. Gas, being cleaner to burn, has been touted as an option for the bridge to clean renewables. But it has been proven worse than coal in its extraction and production, to say nothing of the human effects caused by the environmental damage. This is where you come in, if energy planning is within your powers. If gas is to be a short-term bridge, then the alternative interstate pipeline routes should be considered as a preference to a new one, which will cause extensive environmental, societal, and personal economic damage, and detriment to the existing economies that are based on the natural features of the land in our areas. If this pipeline is built, it will encourage gas drilling in New York State, which is hotly contested by residents who will be ill affected. In fact, as air and water is not static on one's leased land, what one person approves can ill affect many others. So this is not just New York State, this spreads to other states. The reality is the advantages are oil and gas industry profit rather than the good long-term jobs for a sustainable economy that respects the planet. The more infrastructure in place, the more drilling, the more damage, the longer the bridge to renewables. Therefore, I ask you to include these points in your study. Next, I ask you to review the regulations already in place. It has been our experience in Pennsylvania that even though our state made some improvements in the oil and gas laws, they are still not adequate to protect human health. I ask you to improve your regulations to protect the public before you approve this or any other pipeline. We in middle-class areas have virtually no protection at all. This is unconscionable. Our lives are worth just as much as those living closer together. Because my residence and farm buildings rest on shallow bedrock, I am at risk of substantial damage from this industrial construction. A compressor station with a regulated distance from me or my family would be intolerable. The noise allowed is intolerable, and the reduction in air quality allowed is sickening. We have clean, fresh, healthy air and water here. Just because it is allowed a maximum of toxins on the regulatory books is not acceptable to us who have to endure the change for industry profit. Because my children depend on our organic family farm, the quality of our air and water are critical. Just at a time when U.S. citizens, in fact people all over the globe, are turning to locally grown fresh food for their family's health, we are faced with risks of contamination government should and must prevent. So again, I ask you to study your regulations and correct the flaws in emissions so that all citizens, no matter what the population density is, are protected from all these contingencies. I thank you, and I have a PS. Cost to industry should not be a factor in this matter. In a capitalistic economic system, if industry causes prices to fall because they themselves have created a glut in the market, their profit losses should not be used as a bargaining chip to maintain regulations lax on health protection. Thank you.
Thank you. Howard Hill. Check. Howard Hannum, Hannum. I am a small farm owner as well as a tax-paying landowner from Delaware County, New York. First of all, I'd like to voice my displeasure with the FERC. I speak on behalf of hundreds of disenfranchised landowners from Delaware and Otsego County in New York. We think it is necessary to schedule separate hearings in those locations and give the folks in those areas ample time to prepare statements and testimony. There is absolutely no public transportation available for Delaware County, New York residents to any of the 3 hearing sites. Last night in Schoharie County, New York, over 250 people showed up and 72 disenfranchised landowners were turned away and were not able to speak. The FERC is required as a government agency to show reasonable accommodation for tax-paying disenfranchised residents. The FERC has failed miserably here. I request that the compressor station currently being constructed on Turnpike Road in Brooklyn Township be included in this FERC permit request process. Tonight, I oppose the Constitution Pipeline project, and I speak in regard to the damage being done to the mighty Susquehanna River. Just up the road from here in the town of Lenox, there is black water that is noticeable in wells and drinking water in and around the neighborhood behind the Valerio gas station. Town supervisors are not cooperating with citizen requests for water studies and testing. Great Bend is a town further along the I-81 corridor, and they are having problems that make Lenox dwarf in comparison. Great Bend's town supervisors are aware of their problem, and they are aware that the Susquehanna River continues for 13 more miles toward the city of Binghamton and their water intake. With calls and requests put into the DEP water quality for black water, as well as DEP oil and gas, and Halstead Great Bend Joint Sewer Authority, the requests are falling on deaf ears. The concern is with the Great Bend Water Sewer Authority. The treatment plant cannot handle the black water and its contents, and the city of nearly 50,000 New Yorkers and their drinking water is merely 13 miles away. Noted journalist Buck Quigley of the Buffalo Art Voice has been working a story on this issue and has piqued the interest of Binghamton's mayor, who will be bringing a team of experts to Great Bend in a matter of days. Mr. Quigley goes on to describe the river in the PA, New York area as a river that flows both south in some parts and north in others. Tributaries like Painted Post throughout Tioga County, New York, feed the river, as do tributaries in Bradford County, Pennsylvania. You may ask how all of this ties into what we are doing here tonight, and I will try to answer that. Williams Partners and its affiliates and subsidiaries have a very long list of accidents in regard to leaks and blowouts, inadvertent returns to surface, explosions, and most notably, failure to comply with regulation. Cabot Oil and Gas is an affiliate or partner, if you will, and has a long list of EPA and DEP fines and failures. Laser is a company owned by Williams and is responsible for numerous accidents and fines and failures throughout Bradford and Susquehanna counties of Pennsylvania, and more importantly, just miles from the Binghamton drinking water. The Mill Creek spill 3 years ago, the spills in Silver Lake Township, Laurel Lake, another laser site, and Lathrop, Manning's, Hadlicks, which are Cabot accident sites, and Cabot is a partner in the project we speak to tonight. With a history of denial after denial and non-compliance and failure to follow EPA emergency SOP, the solution is not so simple. We, the concerned residents of New York, offer as an alternative the use of existing lines already in place along the northern parts of Pennsylvania, which will easily and expeditiously carry the Susquehanna, Pennsylvania product to New York City and Boston markets. There is already in existence a current New York line which also carries the product to those same markets. Those aforementioned lines in Pennsylvania and New York are not fully subscribed, and we see no reason to add another line now. Williams Partners is planning to permit for a 121-mile open access 30-inch pipeline from Susquehanna County, PA to Schoharie County, New York, and they are proposing a series of different routes, all of which will cross the Susquehanna River in multiple places and will be laid within a matter of feet from the river in other stretches throughout New York. I'd like to request from the FERC an independent and not an industry test, full comprehensive study of the background of Williams Partners, including midstream and laser, and include any and all subsidiaries and affiliates, as well as operating partners such as Chief and Cabot and Talisman. And I'd like a complete look at the accident records of the last 3 years in Pennsylvania drilling operations, which include pipelines and gathering lines. Also included should be well pad and compressor station accidents, and I'd like to request a special focus on repeat offenders and the offenses and the rectified results. Evaporating and storage ponds need to be included in the study with emphasis on those ponds that washed away during Hurricanes Irene and Lee of 2011. Fines and failures of each company and their affiliates should also be included. I would also like to request from the FERC a cumulative environmental impact assessment on the effects this project will have on the Susquehanna River along the entire 121-mile line to Schoharie, New York. I'd like the study to include future speculation and drilling processes which would affect the river, including pipelines and gathering lines and the construction of each. Finally, I'd like to request a study to be done on the Susquehanna River as it stands today, including any and all effects from drilling processes in northern Pennsylvania on the river. I'd like a 50-mile radius around the city of Binghamton to be the study point, and include all tributaries with a special focus on black water and the drilling processes in those locales. Thank you. Christina Turchik.
Thank you for letting me, sorry. My name is Christina Turchek, T-U-R-E-C-H-E-K. Thank you for letting us speak to your scope of work on this project. Our family owns about 65 beautiful acres in Lawrence, Otsego County, New York. But I grew up in Pennsylvania. It's partly why I'm here. And have relatives still here. It pains me to know that my home state is being raped for what, the third or the fourth time? Logging, coal, shale gas. Now, we come here from New York, the rest of us, because we accept that you have the power of a final say over this Constitution pipeline. But I would like to speak to two issues that are beyond your purview, because they need to be brought forth and examined closely. They were brought up last night in Schoharie, New York. But I will begin as I did last night. With one stroke of the pen, if you approve this pipeline, you are opening up the entire eastern mid-state and mid-state portions of New York for gas drilling in the Marcellus Shale. We do not want it, we do not need it. First, I will refer to an issue discussed by John Curley last night regarding the extreme extrajudicial power you wield, especially when it comes to eminent domain, which you instantly permit with your signatures when you certify a pipeline like this. If you open up gas drilling to an entire virgin region by permitting a pipeline where there was none before, and that gas gets exported, or even was not needed, because, as mentioned, we do have a glut of gas, bringing prices way below what gas brings overseas, then you are facilitating land speculation and the exploitation of American people solely for the financial benefit of the private corporate gas industry. This brings up constitutional issues. If our gas is exported by your signatures, you are turning portions of America into a third world country. In fact, this is probably treasonous. Your scope of work is not to investigate your own powers, I know that, which we all have to accept at this point in time. But you do need to think about your extreme power, and we, the people, also need to think about your powers. But not only on the federal level, state, county, and local legislative entities also wield the power to sacrifice U.S. citizens to the world market. I'm thinking of my town board and a lot of other ones in New York State. And Cuomo, too. The second issue, which is beyond your scope, and was brought up at Schoharie by Gene Marner, is world climate change, involving expanding population, conservation of energy, renewable energies and subsidies to them. I mean, it's too huge, I'm not going to talk about it all. In 150 to 200 years, which is a blip in history, we have nearly used up the easily available fossil fuels. And here we are, riding down the other side of peak oil. We knew this was coming years ago, in the 1950s, as I was growing up, and way before then. Again, with a stroke of your pen certifying this pipeline, you point this country, indeed the planet, backward instead of forward. Please think about these two things that are currently beyond your purview when you exercise the huge power in your signature. Thank you. And thank you. I play the piano. I can't imagine how you do this for hours on end.
Etofario Bevilacqua.
I'm getting an education just like you guys. The more I get educated, the more I don't want this. This is prostitution rape. They got rid of Pataki because he was going with prostitutes. This is worse. They're raping the United States people that pay the taxes in this country. How could you do this to people? You're killing them too. Who gave you all people license to kill these people? These poor guys here, they got a life to say, oh, we're doing this is legal. I've been to your office in Wilkes-Barre for the DEC. Well, it's a legal business. They might as well legalize prostitution. At least it doesn't kill children. They're not involved. They're babies in the houses. Look, you got a child here. I feel bad for that child tonight. I smell it as soon as I get into the Pennsylvania tonight. The more I learn, I don't understand. This has got to stop now. It's got to get criminalized. I will talk to Senator Tony Abella. I'll get Joe Tyner on board, and I'll get Craig Balls on board. And I hope this is on the internet with Twitter and Facebook, so we can give knowledge to the people of the United States. They've done this in 32 states, and they're still getting away with it? What country is this? And the people don't allow it, it's like prostitution. These are guys going to people's houses and say, here, we'll give you some money, and we'll rape you at the same time. The more I'm learning, I hope you're learning too, because this is a disgrace to the human race. This is genocidal suicide for generations to come, which is called generational genocide. And you talk to some people, oh yeah, the government's going to do whatever they're going to do. Sure, if we don't stand up and we don't get for our rights, we'll let them walk all over us. The oil company is the oil mafia. We have the mafia right here. They put all the other groups in jail. Why don't they put them in jail? You would have locked me up if I would have dumped the oil and all the stuff they're doing. You would have had me in jail already. Why aren't they all locked up? They told Pataki to leave off because he went with a prostitute. Here we go. As long as you let us take your fuel, and then they get to migrate, eminent domain, where are we going with this? This is a disgrace. You're giving them a license to kill by agreeing to this project. This project has to stop. Here now it has to be criminalized. They're in Europe. They're all over the place. They're running the whole country, not just the United States. They're running the continents across Europe. They're in Italy, Sicily, all over the place. I read. I never read as much as I've been reading now in the last few months. I went to school for 12 years. I passed. I retired from a union. You should all be held liable. Who's a competent person? You should all go to jail. Competent person on a construction site goes to jail if something happens. Nobody's held liable alive. Meanwhile, they're killing people. People can't breathe, people get sick, people dying from cancer. Now I found out where all the cancer's coming from. And it also was on WPIX last night. That Grumman is another great one on Long Island, because I live on Long Island. So there's still more chemical. Like the other idiot that was on the thing. He goes, oh yeah, the Susquehanna River, all the farmers threw all the chemicals down. It's not going to do nothing. So let's keep on doing it. Where are we going to live after it's all polluted? Where are we going to go? And it's all gone. We have to protect it now. We have to stop this. We have to protect this, and I will get in touch with I call all the legislators and senators, and I'm in contact with Senator Tony Abella at least twice a week. I call Mr. Como. Mr. Como is bought by the prostitution oil company. Thank you.
Thank you. William Heston.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. greatest interest, first two. So, the great Buck Quigley that you heard about previously, the person that told him about this data was me. And I was a little inappropriate after, because it was after the event was over. I tried to tell you a little bit, and the stenographer had already packed up. So I'm sorry about that, but this is really important to me. So I hope you can pay close attention to this matter. So I work with a group called Shale Shock Media. It's all volunteer. I don't get paid, not a dime. Sometimes people will buy me dinner after an event like this for videotaping and putting it on the internet. People are grateful for the work that I do. But I don't get paid. And I'm very well, I consider myself to be rather well informed on this whole shale gas thing. I've been following it very closely for 2.5 years. Now, there are some people in this room that have been following this for more like 4 years. But I'm just about 2.5 years, and I learned something the other night, it was about a month ago, that was shocking to me. I mean, and he told me, and I was busy working, and I'm like, you can just hold it. He's in this room, he spoke before. And I said, I can't listen to you now. Will you please just let me talk, let me do my work, and I'll talk to you later. And I talked to him later, and this is what he told me. He said that there's a place called Great Bend Borough, Pennsylvania. He's a counselor, and he's on the sewer authority. He said, Bill, we have a problem. I'm like, tell me. And he said, we have people, bunch of homes, their water turned black. Now, I don't need a test. I don't need the EPA to tell me that black water ain't so good. I don't want to drink it. You know what? If I had black water like the people in Dimmock, and then later the EPA comes back and does a bunch of tests and says, your water's fine. That wouldn't give me confidence if I was the affected person. I don't think they're making this up. People don't make up black water. So, he told me this is 13 miles upstream of the intake for the city of Binghamton. The city of Binghamton, unlike some other towns that are in the area, the city of Binghamton doesn't take their water from a well. The city of Binghamton takes it directly from the river. The city of Binghamton takes water directly from the river. And what I found out, based on what Brett told me, I started digging. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. There's fracking going on upstream of the intake for the water source for the city of Binghamton? Are you telling me there's fracking going on in the water supply upstream of my city? I had no idea. I've been following this carefully for 2.5 years. I'm like, what the fuck? I started calling every news outlet. We've got 8 in Binghamton. WBNG, WYNN, WSKG, WICZ, WIVT, Press and Sun Bulletin, WHRW, and I forgot one. We have 8. It took them a month. One of them finally reported this story 2 days ago. People in New York have no idea their water supply has been fracked for 4 years. People in New York have no idea from Binghamton to Johnson City. I don't have my list. I can tell you from I know the map. Binghamton, Johnson City, Vestal, Endicott, Appalachian, Owego, Horseheads, Elmira, Painted Post, Chemung, Union, Waverly, Corning, The worst spot is actually Waverly. I think we're still analyzing this data because amazingly, nobody's asked this question apparently before me. Or maybe some people know this and they just kept mum about it, like the mainstream media. So we're still analyzing the data, but listen to this very carefully. What we are about to do in New York, we are going to assert police power authority over what goes on in our headwaters. That means we are going to cross state lines into Pennsylvania and we're going to stop that shit.
We're already late. We didn't stop. My daughter lives in Binghamton.
So people have been, excuse me, may I speak please? Thank you. I really like what you have to say, Frank, but please. Pete, sorry. That's all right. I know. This is killing us. Speaker after speaker have been telling you this. Are you getting the message? I have a video. I don't know if you can comment back to me, but I'm just curious. When is the last day of comment period? Is it in October? October sometime?
October 9th.
Great. Okay, as part of my testimony, I'm going to include a little movie, a little video. I almost am done. Let me describe the video to you. So the question is, how many in volume or weight, how many what's the volume of toxic chemicals that has been introduced into the headwaters of my drinking water? How many toxic chemicals? Okay, that was the question that I asked. And it took me a while. I found the answer. It's 8,500 tons. In 4 years, 8,500 tons. If this glass is my headwaters, my drinking glass, I'm sorry. Yes, 8,500 tons of toxic chemicals have been dumped into my drinking water in the past 4 years. We're going to stop it. We're going to stop pipelines. We're going to stop permits. We're going to stop fracking, drilling, exploring, surveying. We're going to stop every last bit. It's going to start in New York and then it's going to come to Pennsylvania. This is something that FERC, since you have interstate jurisdiction over this matter, we are asking for your support. We don't want this to be an adversarial relationship. We would love it if you would help us protect ourselves. This is an attack on our lives. How can we make this any more clear to you? This is an attack on present-day lives. Trees, birds, deer, fish, horses, people. It's killing all of these things nominally. It's not hidden. Fracking kills life. Somebody here has the sign, fracking equals death. That's what it is. We are going to stop it. The sooner that you realize this, and if you're not, I don't know if you're empowered or not. Somebody in Afton said maybe you're not, I don't know. But if the people that are empowered, these federal commissioners, whoever they are, I don't even know their names, I'm about to find out because I'm going to start writing to them. But if you all need to get in line with the principles of life and living, and you should do that quickly to avoid suffering of many beings through many generations. This has to stop. I've given you technical comments in Afton about that illegal and unpermitted facility in Brooklyn, PA. We've had tours of the facility. DP5 permit. What is that? For an evaporator? They got to build up. How big is it? How many acres?
54.
54 acres. It's a 54-acre site for an evaporator, this DP5, DEC. They have no federal permits for that facility. It should properly be considered. I think people have said this tonight, that facility should properly be considered to be part of this project. It is an essential part of the design. It's fraud to submit plans for a 121-mile, 30-inch high-pressure pipeline without an initial compressor. It's fraud. There's no other word for it. You have to stop them now. Cease and desist all activity, including Williams Central Station in Brooklyn, PA. Cease and desist. That's what we're telling you. We are asserting local sovereignty. So if you can get in line with that, help us out. We'd really appreciate it. But we're going to put our bodies down, and we're going to stop this shit, because it's killing us. Thank you.
Okay, so we've got through everyone on our speakers list. If there's anyone that has not yet spoken tonight and wishes to do so, please come forward and state your name for the record as well. Thank you.
My name is Peggy Maloof, M-A-L-O-O-F. I'm a resident of Susquehanna County. My husband and I own a farm not really very far from here. We're actually near the primary route for this Constitution pipeline. I had checked into it a number of times and finally went down to one of the supervisor or township areas and saw maps and found out these guys wanted to go right through our property. Now, we haven't signed any leases. We haven't agreed to anything to do with the gas company. We've actually been trespassed when they were doing seismic testing and asked them to stay off our property. We consider this a serious threat to our property values and feel like we've been pushed out of the area, aside from the fact that it's damaging, to our property values, it's damaging to the community. There's created lots of hostility. Some people are for it, some people are against it, and it's turned neighbor against neighbor. It's changed the character of our community. It's really very upsetting. This pipeline, if it went through in the area that's near our home, it would be within an eighth of a mile of our house and about 3 or 4, several other homes right along the way. So clearly we'd be gone if it blew up, if there was an accident. And within 2 miles, there are at least 70 or more homes. I really can't count them, and I know right around the lake we have property on, there are 60-something homes there, and then there are a few very close by. I'm concerned about the safety. I'm concerned about the air quality, the contamination. Who knows what kind of noise? I felt this way early on when the landmen came around suggesting that they would like us to sign leases and how wonderful that would be. And, since my husband's been in the investment industry, investment banking, he knows what contracts are, and immediately the antennas went up that this was not any deal for us. And I felt that it was a danger to the environment and to the animals in the area and everything else in the water. But that was before I knew anything. After I found out, the more I found out, well, I was right. Another issue is insurance. I checked with our insurance companies, and I checked with them from time to time to see if they've made any new policies. But one of the things they've said to me is that if there's any damage that comes out of this, now we haven't signed anything, which is many insurance companies are a little confused how to respond to that. If we had signed anything, or even if we had allowed activity on our property, even without compensation, we could have jeopardized our homeowner's policy. Many people don't really understand that. Now, I asked them, well, what would happen? If there's an accident, we would have to deal with the gas company. Now, from what I've heard, personally, I know people who've been interacted with the Cabot and some of these other gas companies, and they were trying very hard to just get their damages recovered. I mean, their water's ruined, their property values, they can't sell their homes, and And they finally came to some kind of agreement, and some of them left the area. I really don't think that anybody would have agreed to this if they had known up front. This is what's going to happen in the community. According to this book I was reading, it was saying that they would pay you for your losses, negotiate an agreement, but if you didn't come to an agreement, they would have eminent domain and assign a property value. Well, I'm wondering, is that property value going to be assigned before or after they basically brought down the property values in the area? I can tell you that right where our home is, we have a home and a guest house and property. We've been offered a $500,000 contract and a couple of million just to buy out our property, and we've turned it all down. Now, I know that there's at least 4 homes right near us that range in value of $500,000, $250,000 to over $1 million. Just the homes. So, and this is within a quarter, an eighth of a mile to 2 miles of this pipeline that could blow right up. I don't know what people are thinking here. You know, I think that I'd like to see you do a comprehensive study, which others have asked for, that includes the issues of safety, that the environmental issues, and the economic consequences. Because right now, this thing looks like a bubble to me. You know, right now it looks like people have renting properties, they're filling up hotels, the restaurants are busy. But as soon as the transients move out, because a lot of the people who are working for these companies, most of them are from out of the area, as soon as they move out, our economy is going to be damaged, and we really were doing fine as a rural community. We didn't need to have a boom come in here and have all these resources taken. I know neighbors who were given $25 or $50 an acre for, and then these companies who came in and purchased these leases for practically nothing and signed these 12% royalty deals, and then were told later that they basically, the companies went in and bundled them and sold them as an investment strategy. So we're in an economic bubble, somewhat similar, I think, to the mortgage bubble, and we saw what happened with that. So I was also told that some of these companies have gotten mortgages on the gas rights. They've sold the gas rights, and they. I asked some of the people, well, what happens if you sign a lease and it turns out that you have to pay part of the cost of development, and you actually, the development starts, the gas well starts losing money, and you end up at a loss? Could you lose your property? And evidently there's a possibility some people might. It's not all the big, wonderful deal some of these people think it is. Now, I understand this young man who's speaking for the gas company thinks that it all sounds great and it's the future, but it may be clean burning this gas once it's out, but it's actually very contaminating to get it out. It uses a lot of water. It's a very dangerous thing. And there are some places who ban it. I understand Vermont has, and there's some other countries. So I understand Quebec, I think, is not for it. And there's some other countries who are actually banning it. So it's not a big, wonderful thing that everybody's jumping on the bandwagon for. So thank you. Appreciate being able to speak.
Is there anyone else that has not spoken that answer?
Robert Curley, K-E-R-L-E-Y, I'm a resident of Schoharie County. I just wanted to clarify that I think I was referenced in a comment by Christina Turchek that it's really Robert Curley. Yes, I had talked about the extrajudicial nature of FERC and the Natural Gas Act and also preceding acts. And I think by definition it is extrajudicial. The process is based entirely on a board of commissioners, if I recall, selected by the president, issuing the final ruling, including the right of eminent domain that cannot be reviewed by the courts. And I haven't read of any federal court case that has overturned that. So to me, that seems to be extrajudicial. And Constitution. I think it's a very important thing that that be put out here because it calls into question the very nature, legality, and logic of the regulatory scheme established by the Natural Gas Act of 1938, all the superseding acts, and now placed in FERC. So I just wanted to clarify that. And I also wanted to, I think, endorse several comments from the meeting in Schoharie, New York last night. I can't remember who spoke, but I think it was people basically saying, at least 3 people said that we need a complete renewable energy policy that goes well beyond FERC or beyond the Energy Department. This has to be a national policy in all departments, all commissions. And we've got to get past 5 to 10 year booms in one county, another, one state, another. This has been going on in America since, about 1875, beginning largely here in Pennsylvania. And we just need a better way to go. This is pretty much a long-term, I don't want to say failure because it allowed the country to grow industrially, but it has not allowed us to grow sustainably, and now we're out of balance. So, and I would say to draw this into the original idea of the environmental impact statement, that the best way to prevent environmental impacts, negative environmental impacts, is to get rid of all this. This is all completely ridiculous. I'm tired of it. Thank you.
My name is Joanne Fiorito. That's Joanne Fiorito. I live in Tunkhannock, Pennsylvania. I came here tonight not wanting to get up in front of you and speak. However, I feel that what's going on here is this country has been shanghaied. People in your position have basically lowered the boom down on us, which equates to political oppression. I haven't heard one iota about, oh yeah, it's a pipeline. Well, I had Williams put a 24-inch pipeline on my neighbor's property. They dug a trench. They didn't put the packing sand in. Brett was a witness to this. So you have a pipeline put into raw earth, no buffer. These things are on the sides of hills. They cut the base of the mountain, all the trees, all the stuff that holds the mountainside in, and it's going to move. It's going to crack, and like Vera said, there's no odor in this. So when my time comes, you better hope it comes fast and permanent, because I will be looking for bodies. And I'm going to start with Williams. They put dirt with rocks in it, okay? Do you have any idea what this does to anodization? How it chips the paint right off of it? So then when you have rocks that click together, if there's a possible leak, it goes boom. 24 inches will level almost a mile. Then you're talking simply oil and gas through these pipelines? Well, bullshit. Where's the Nuclear Regulatory Commission? All these wellheads have above average acceptable limits of nuclear isotopes. 3 different types of thorium. 4 different types of uranium, 2 of which are weaponized material. You're not being honest with these people. You're also not accounting for the transportation of this from hither to yon. What is wrong with this nation? You people are insane and must be stopped. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Fed up with this bullshit.
I would like to clarify, with the comment period, we will continue to accept comments after the October 9th deadline. We just established that so we can start to get comments in early so that we can fully address and research and analyze the issues that you bring up. We will continue to take comments up until we issue a final environmental impact statement. As I mentioned before, this meeting has been recorded and transcripts will be placed in the public record. That record is available on our website at ferc.gov. From that page, you can select the e-library link and input the docket number for this project, which is PF12-9 with no spaces. You can use e-library to access everything that the commission does with this project and all the filings by the applicant and all the comments from other interested parties. So on behalf of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, thank you for all coming tonight. This meeting is adjourned.
Excuse me. Since it's only 9 o'clock, is there any
Since it's
chance?
only 9 o'clock, can we have a Q&A period?
Can we do a little
We can't do
Q&A?
that. I don't think we have time for that. We don't have the facility until a certain time.
10 o'clock,
We have
another
a
hour.
facility till 10 o'clock.
It's another hour.
The meeting has been adjourned.
Okay. Okay. I can understand.
I mean, you guys have the right, if the school district allows you to speak among yourselves.
It's supposed to be till 10,
Yeah.
7 to 10. It's only 9
Right,
o'clock.
depending on whoever the
Well, I have
administrative
some
decision.
questions based on these last few speakers here.
I mean, I think legally in a hearing, they can't have a Q&A session.
But he did say, I really wanted to ask, I wanted everybody to hear it though, the
Yeah.
answers. And that's not going to happen now. I mean, I can talk to him now.
Hey, again.
I wish I could have heard your clarification.